Good morning. I am walking Alpha to our favorite coffee shop. It's about 1.5 miles from our house. So it's a great walk to do in the morning, and I'm going to try to do it more often now. I've been feeling better the last 2 days. I went to a chiropractor and got adjusted, and that seemed to help my headaches. So, I've had a lot of people ask me about adrenals and hormones in general and want me to talk about that. So I figured I would talk about it now since I'm walking. So it kind of relates to me walking to get coffee because I actually suffered from horrible adrenal fatigue in 2012 and 13. I wasn't actually diagnosed until almost 2014 because I didn't see a specialist for it, but I should have known just with the way I was. So to dumb this down a little bit, I'm going to kind of explain what adrenal fatigue is for people who don't know. But again, this isn't going to be medical terms. I'm just going to make it very simple. Your adrenal glands are basically little glands that produce your energy source for you. So if you have malfunctioning adrenal system, you would feel very fatigued all the time, regardless of how much sleep you got, regardless of how much caffeine you drank. You pretty much feel like shit. And so the real question is, how does this happen, or how do we basically burn out our adrenal glands? And I mean, there's a few different ways that you can really do that to yourself. So as a competitor, we are very susceptible of doing this to ourselves because usually when we're competing or prepping, we are, we typically are, not sleeping all that great, doing more output or expenditure than what is normal. And if you're somebody who uses coffee like a ton, like I used to, or pre-workouts or anything that's a stimulant, you're gonna only push yourself that. Your body basically gets to a point where it's so exhausted and so tired, but you keep giving it these fake stimulant sources through coffee or fat burners or whatever you're taking. Your adrenal system is like, well, I'm getting all this fake energy supply, so I'm just gonna stop functioning because what's the point when I have all of this? And the longer you do this and the harder you do this and the more you do this, and if you have a bad prep coach like I did in 2012 and you're dieting and you're not eating much and you're not taking, the worse and worse this will get because your body is just going to completely stop basically producing any of its own energy source, and you're going to be become dependent on these fake energy sources, which at one point will stop working for you too. So you need more and more and more, which happened to me as well. Hello. So to give you guys an example, in 2012, I was commuting to a job like an hour a day, waking up at 3 a.m. every day. So I would get up at 3, do cardio, commute to work, drink a shitload of coffee. Didn't matter how much coffee I drank. I could have 9 shots, it would do shit to me. And I was taking fat burners because I was under all this pressure to get lean enough for show. I would take green tea extract, extra shots of espresso. Half the time I'd be falling asleep by the time I'd be driving home. And when I got back home, I would go straight to the gym and work out for another hour, hour and a half. And needless to say, I wasn't sleeping. I was eating shit. My coach had me on a horrible, horrible cookie cutter, low carb, low calorie diet. So months and months of this went on. I honestly would drink upward of, 6 to 7 venti coffees a day from Starbucks. That was back when Starbucks would give you free refills if you saved your cup. So I would go through that drive-through as many times a day as I could and refill my cup. And even with all that in my system, I was still exhausted. Like, I could sleep for a week if I didn't have something to do every day. But obviously, I never. And physically, it started to show too. I had the worst bags under my eyes. I looked like just deathly sick. And yes, I did get lean eventually doing all that, but it was at the price of my health, and I completely screwed my adrenal. Anyway, I ended up seeing a doctor who specialized in hormones out of Lincoln, Nebraska, and he helped me kind of get. By the time I was diagnosed, I was almost a stage 3 adrenal fatigue, which is pretty damn severe. Past stage 3, you kind of can't come back. Move on past that point, you kind of can't come back from it. I mean, if you do, it takes years. I'm talking like 3 years to heal yourself. So what I did is I rested a ton more. I stopped forcing the gym. I slept more. I was cut way back on cardio until eventually I was pretty much doing none, some HIIT sessions here and there. And basically I tried to cut out caffeine. I switched to decaf. People would always make fun of me for drinking decaf, but I just was so addicted to the taste of coffee. I needed something, and so decaf to me was better than not having coffee at all. So I eventually tried to kind of wean myself off of caffeine completely until I just didn't feel like I needed it to live. Cut out pre-workouts. I didn't touch a fat burner. I pretty much just cut all stimulants out of my system. I just slept as much as I could. And honestly, I probably got back into a prep a little too quickly after being diagnosed. However, I did take at least, I think it was about 9 months that I took off from dieting, from prepping, from pushing myself. And I did have my labs redone. I had my labs redone a few times over that period, and they did just keep getting better and better. My adrenal system looked better. I felt better. I had more natural energy. I was taking Adrenal Assist. It's a natural supplement to help with adrenal fatigue. I took that religiously for about 2 years. Okay, we're back after a coffee break. So along with the Adrenal Assist, I took a few other things. I'm going to have to look at the names of them. But I ordered Adrenal Assist off. Products on Pure Formula are reviewed for quality and content and all that, so I felt good about the source it was coming from. But I do, so a lot of you probably wonder like why maybe you felt like shit for a while, think you have adrenal fatigue, but no doctor has diagnosed you. It's because you need to go to a hormone specialist who specializes in hormones, and if you can find someone who specializes with athletes, even better, because the athlete body and our hormones are a lot different than the regular person. But when testing adrenal function, to do it properly, you cannot do it through blood. So if you've had just a bunch of blood panels done, then your doctor hasn't looked. Adrenal should be tested through saliva because your cortisol production, which is coming from your adrenal glands, changes throughout the day. So if you take a blood test, it's just one. So the only accurate way of really testing adrenal glands is to test them multiple times a day throughout the period of 24 hours. And my doctor sent me a little tube kit where I would spit into tubes multiple times a day, and they tested my saliva. So I also want to talk a little bit about thyroid function and how that plays a part in all this. Your thyroid glands, basically, since our bodies are so complex and all our systems are connected, if one system is malfunctioning or just not working properly, it's gonna affect other systems. So if you tax your adrenal glands, eventually that is going to tax your thyroid. So your thyroid is basically what controls your metabolism. And you can imagine how messed up you can really make your body through dieting already, which is going to kind of slow down your metabolism regardless. Since dieting does slow the progression of your metabolism naturally, regardless of how healthy you do it. Once you tax your adrenals, which then taxes your thyroid even more, you can basically be left with like severe metabolic damage, if you want to call it that, through all of this, on top of a shitload of other problems. So if you're somebody who already has a slow metabolism, maybe it's genetics, maybe you just have a hard time losing weight, and then you go into a aggressive diet, you are really in for it if you think that prepping for a show and going hardcore like 7 days a week and just going extreme, you're just gonna be left in a way worse position with a way worse functioning metabolism if you think that's the route to go. And honestly, I have girls inquire every day who, I ask them what their intake's at, what their expenditure's at, what their body fat is at, and they're doing like 2-a-days, eating 1,200 calories, and they're still 20 pounds from stage weight and want me to help them get to stage. Unfortunately, there's a lot of coaches in this industry that all they want is money, and they would take on somebody like that, but I am not that coach, and I tell these girls that they should not be, and I tell these girls the truth. I'm like, you are gonna be in for it if you keep this up. Like, you need to reverse diet out of this deficit. You need to stop killing yourself, because take it from me, it's not worth it. I was lucky enough to be able to come out of it and fix my hormones. But I also come from a background of I come from a background where I should naturally be pretty thin, but even so, I still screwed up my metabolism. I know I still put weight on easier than I would have if I never dieted, still to this day. And it's been 3 years since I competed, but I have continued to prep. So, and unfortunately, I didn't have a good coach in the beginning. I mean, I did my first year, but after that I didn't. And I went through the adrenal hell and I pushed myself too much. I have the knowledge and the resources and the experience to fix myself as much as I can, and I'm still not normal. I'm still not back 100%. I'm getting there. I mean, I've come a really long ways. My last prep this last year, I was eating a ton more fat and carbs than I've ever been able to eat and get lean. Even so, my body was still very sensitive coming out of that, and I didn't have proper time to reverse diet, and then I went into IVF treatments, and I'm still heavier than I'm comfortable with, honestly. But being pregnant now, I'm using this time to fully recover and give myself a full break. So you see all these girls and you're like on Instagram, you're like, how do they stay so lean year round? And that's possible and everything else. Well, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Because Stephanie Mayho, if you guys follow her, she's an IFBB pro. I actually competed at my first show with her. She just wrote a post about this. She did 45 shows and, stayed lean for the last 5 years. And her body's not responding anymore at all. And she's so, it doesn't matter, what type of metabolism you have or how healthy you're even prepping. 5 years of staying lean and doing that many shows is going to catch up with you. You need to give your, I do follow her on Snapchat, and I do see how much cardio she was doing before this last show, and she said it was the worst she ever looked. And, it's obvious her body just needs a break, and I'm happy she's taking a break and taking the necessary steps to let her body recover from this, because it can be a downhill battle. If you guys know Lauren, who works for me and is also a pro, and Lauren stays pretty damn lean most of the year, and she never drops her carbs that low. Only 5'1", 105 pounds or so on stage, and we deplete her on like 130 grams, her lowest, for like a couple days. That's it. Not depleting fats. Her fat intake never really drops below 40 grams, and so it's not like her hormones are taking a huge hit from that either. But even so, last year we had a point where she didn't seem to be responding like she did before, and it wasn't that her calories were so low or she was doing too much cardio. It more so had to do with the fact that she had been maintaining such low body fat for so long that it didn't matter that her calories were way up 1800. It was just her body needed more body fat. It just needed that break where she put on more body fat for her body to just be back in balance again. She was so determined to do that show, and I had to talk her out of it because I knew her body was not responding how it should be, and she just needed. So she agreed to pull out, and it's funny because her weight actually did jump up a little bit, that she wasn't used to that. She still was lean, but for her, even after she pulled out of the show and we reverse dieted her extremely slow, her weight jumped way up, more than we were used to seeing, but she didn't look like she was holding more body. I know it freaked her out a little bit. She was kind of like, what the hell? But it was just her body signaling like she needed to take that downtime. And so anyway, long story short, I'm so happy that she decided not to go through with that show and give herself the proper break, because she dieted this spring for the show she just did and responded like her old self again. So it just shows you, everybody's body needs a break. You can't push it like that for that many years or months or whatever. And my Snapchat, or my phone, is about to die because I've been on here so long, but I'm almost home. And I wanted to say that, when I got pregnant, I cut out coffee. I stopped drinking coffee completely. Now, you have to think it's been 3 years since I went through my adrenal fatigue, so I have worked some coffee back into. Anyway, due to my headaches lately, the doctors, and they actually recommended I drink a little bit of caffeine every day because of my hormones right now and my estrogen. I had major sinus issues lately, which is very common in pregnancy. So the caffeine actually helps get your blood flowing a little bit better and open up those passageways. Now that I I've added caffeine back in, just 1 coffee a day. It's funny because it actually does something to me and it affects me. Like I feel like it gives me energy. Like I said, you know, years ago I could drink 10 coffees and go to sleep, and that's because my adrenal system was so jacked and I was living on uppers. So that just shows, you know, that my body is functioning normal again, because caffeine actually affects me and I don't need 20 shots. I got my adrenal assist off pureformulas.com, and I'll type it in here for you guys. And they have great products, all natural.